1970s until 2014, PPL built and expanded the Montour Preserve. They added the trails, the fossil pit, the sugar shack, the boat launch, the pavilions, and so on, and the visitor center, the environmental education center. And by 2014, PPL had gotten to a point where they said they were going to split themselves into two separate entities. PPL would still exist, but it would be power distribution, and they were going to create a new entity called Talon Energy. And Talon Energy, when they were created, they took over ownership of the Montour Power Plant and the other power plants that PPL had. And in the 2014-2015 period, PPL and Talon said, we're not really in the land, the parks business per se. If there's
John Zach Tansky, the Middle Susquehanna Riverkeeper, Executive Director of the Middle Susquehanna Riverkeeper Association.
And just go ahead and tell us what's
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I sent out a press release earlier today, and the bulk of it is over the past year we've been working on negotiations with Talon through a variety of different groups, and with the goal of protecting and promoting our water-based resources. There was concern about some pollution related to the ash basin 1, close to the plant, and so that was piquing our interest. We originally were brought in by another group called Sierra Club, and that group was looking at a negotiation at that time to end coal burning at Montour, and they had brought in us just because we're local, and so we had local ties, and obviously our goal then was to make sure that whatever was being left behind was something that would be good for the community. So we worked hard to make sure that we did everything we could within the parameters we had to work with to make sure that we have increased pollution monitoring options and a variety of other things that were added. And then in the process of that, the Montour Preserve has always been near and dear to my heart growing up here in this area. And and the future of that was really up in the air at that point, and no one really knew what the next step would be once Talon no longer needed this lake for what they use it for. So in that regard, I was like, well, what can we do to work this into this situation, and ultimately, preserve this for the future for the community and take away some of those question marks.
And just to clarify, what did Talon use this lake for?
They use this lake to cool their power plants. When there's times where they need to cool things down, they pump water from here, from the lake over to the steam stacks. There's actually water being pumped to this lake from the river as well. So it's a pretty intense system of water going on underneath the ground.
What's the future of the preserve look like under your having control of facilities? Is Mark still going to be involved?
Yeah. Again, I grew up loving and enjoying this preserve, and I have good relationship with Bob Stout and with John Beam for a long time, well before this. And my goal is that we work with them. And they have a heart for this place. They've put a lot of sweat, blood, and tears into keeping this a preserve, and that's kind of the goal of what we're doing, is to give them an opportunity to continue doing that. So I know it's involved working with the Montour commissioners. I'm looking forward to working with them. I've unfortunately been kind of bound as not being able to talk with anybody about this confidentiality-wise until today. So I'm excited to take the next step now and to really get involved with talking with the players involved and working through some of the wrinkles and hurdles that might come in the next couple of years as we get things moving forward.
Is the ownership officially transferred over to the Riverkeeper with the sign, or what's that process?
Well, it's ultimately, nothing is signed over at this point. The deal specifically states that they are going to transfer it within 2 years after no longer needing the lake. That deadline is coming up. That's part of the deal, that they will obviously no longer be burning coal by 2025. So within 2 years of that time, they're going to transfer the lake and the preserve to another entity that we have a part in making sure that who that is.
So within 2 years of 2025?
At most, unless they don't need it anymore prior to that. I'm not sure what that timeline will ultimately look like, but maximum term would be within 2 years of 2025, to my understanding. So, and then we basically have a say, and my goal is to work with, again, the players that have been involved so hard to making this place a great place to be. And again, I grew up here. I fished here, I paddled here, we did scouting, camping trips, and everything else here, in marathons, and we want that. I want my kids to be able to do that, and my grandkids someday to be able to come and do the same here. So
for the short term, things here are going to continue as is the way it's sounds.
Yeah, that's actually worked into the wording as well. Everything's going to stay the same as it is right now. There shouldn't be any changes or major issues or anything like that. And then we're going to work on a seamless transition when that time comes.
One of the things I talked to Bob earlier, one of the things he mentioned was Talon manages the dam over here, takes care of that. Have you thought what the plan is going forward?
Again, I mean, and a really tough thing throughout these negotiations, and there's numerous times I have my cell phone in my hand wanting to call Bob or call John or text them and say, hey, what do you guys think? Because their input would have been really valuable to have throughout this. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. So now, we have that place where we can meet with them, we can meet with the commissioners, we can meet with other officials and say, all right, what do we need to do to get this to happen? Obviously, the dam is a special case, and that's one of those hurdles we're going to have to figure out moving forward. Working with a group that can help to maintain that and take care of that, and I'm sure we'll find a resource for that. It's just a matter of today's day one with that process, so it's going to be a couple-year process now to figure that out. So
would that be 2 years before it's starting to work, or before they stop running cold?
It'll be 2 years from when they no longer need the lake is the official wording. So depending on when that time is, I'm not sure officially when that is, but when we do know, we'll definitely continue to be transparent with all of that information as we hit certain deadlines throughout the deal. And obviously we have nothing to hide, and neither do they. They've been good to work with and trying to figure this whole thing out. So
If this settlement didn't work out, what would have happened to this preserve? What were you afraid of?
The preserve, I mean, I don't think anyone really knew what was going to happen. At some point, Talon would no longer need the preserve or the lake, and at that point, it could have been sold off. It could have been. I'm not sure what that next step would have looked like or would have been. There's a lot of question marks and gray areas. So that's not the case at this point, which is what our goal was. So. And above and beyond that, obviously, as Riverkeeper, our main goal getting into this was looking at water quality and making sure we take steps to be able to test groundwater or surface water and to make sure that groundwater seepage isn't happening. And if there is pollution, what we can do to work with Talon to make sure that that's not going to impact the local communities. So that was also a major part of this. And there's a whole string of deadlines and areas that we need to monitor with that moving forward. So.
Were you worried that groundwater seepage was happening right now?
Ash Basin 1 is a large basin where coal ash from the plant is being put. It's a 155-acre pit where it's being put right now, and it's unlined. Ideally, that would be an aligned pit, so it can't be seeping into the groundwater. And with all reports I have, with everything we know, about 70%, 60 to 70% of that is in the groundwater right now, sitting in groundwater. So, that's a major concern. And again, ideally, we would have that all moved into a lined pit, and it would be sealed much better. But that's also an astronomical price range for those involved. And so we needed to find a realistic situation where we could have protections for the community, but also in the end, we were able to save the preserve as well. So,
how long has that pit been used?
I'm not sure. I would imagine it's been used, from my understanding, since the 70s or so, 70s or 80s at the latest.
There was a mention in the release something about some water quality at a church. Has that been impacted by the?
There is a church on Strawberry Ridge in that area. It's Trinity Church, and that was handled all well before us by Talon. There was concerns of water quality in that case, and Talon stepped up, and they've been providing water for that facility. And they, as part of this deal, they'll continue to do that moving forward in perpetuity. So as long as it's being operated, and that they'll be handling that water situation. So
this must be a pretty exciting time for you to know that this is all falling under the auspices of the Riverkeeper. I want to just speak a little to that, given the many great assets of location.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, I took over as Riverkeeper a year ago in February 17th. So within a month of that, I got a call from Sierra Club saying, "Hey, there's this big thing going on. Do you want to get involved?" And it was pretty nerve-wracking. There's a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out how to do things because, again, I grew up not far from here. I graduated from Warrior Run, and I know people who live in Washingtonville and Exchange, and their friends and family members in the area. And I wanted to be able to, when this was all done, that I'd be able to walk down the street, so to speak, of these towns, and look people in the eye and say that we did the best we could to protect these areas. So that part of it was pretty impressive and exciting to be able to do, and I'm really excited to be able to work with Bob and Bob Stout and John Beam, and with Mark and with the commissioners, and to continue to move forward and keep this place the way it is as a preserve. But then also we get to do some pretty exciting stuff with the water remediation concerns and monitoring concerns. Obviously, we're going to be doing surface water testing. We're going to be part of that for the next 30 years. We're going to be testing local creeks to make sure water is not contaminated that's making it into creeks locally. And if there are, then obviously we'll take a step there. There's a background well that's going to be drilled and added to what's going on there. So that's a major step in that it's going to help us make sure that the water that's coming through is not contaminated. And there's a bunch of other steps that we are excited about that's going to help water quality, not just here locally, but also within the river that everything drains into eventually. So.
Was the threat of legal action lawsuits that Talon, is that why they decided?
Yeah, I mean, obviously everything was started again by Sierra Club originally. They did the groundwork, got things going, and that was focused on the coal burning date and the cessation of that. And we were brought involved, and the understanding throughout was that if we didn't come to an agreement, the next step would be things would have to go to court. And no one wanted to get to that point. Talon didn't, we didn't want to, Sierra Club didn't want to. We wanted to find the best possible solution for this so we could all move forward and be able to enjoy the resources we have. So.
Well, had they decided to convert to natural gas before all this?
I'm not sure exactly when that. I know they've been working towards that for quite a while. So I'm not sure what all the initial timelines were. They all asked them about that. Yeah, I know it's been quite a while. I know they have a solar project going on, and there's a variety of other things too. So.
Fishyaker.com, the original kayak rigging video series.